right, welcome everyone to our March meeting, the continuation of winter in March. You guys get extra credit because you're here during some kind of snow. It's not second. I'm Lowell Sheets with Campaign for Liberty. I want to welcome you tonight. I just want to make some quick announcements, housekeeping, and then we'll wrap this up real quick because we're starting a little bit late. But Jerry's in the back with Knights of Columbus, and they've got tea, coffee, soft drinks, beer, wine, and I think even mixed drinks. But think of it as the tavern, like in the olden days. You know, we're having a community meeting. You can get up in the middle of the meeting anytime and go take care of that. Just do it quietly, same with your cell phones. But we appreciate you being here tonight, and we appreciate the Knights of Columbus having us. They've been a great asset to us. They've been a great help to our group. Is this too loud? This sounds so loud to me. Okay, all right. Anyway, we're going to start the meeting off with prayer and then with the pledge to the flag. So if you'd all rise for prayer, please. Dear Father, we come to you and we thank you for everything that you've given us. We praise your name for who you are and what you've done. We thank you for the freedoms that we've enjoyed, the blessings of being in this country and being in the company of these patriots. I pray that you would help us to honor you in everything that we do, and that we might seek to restore freedom and be a blessing to ourselves and to our children and our grandchildren, and just pray that you would stay evil and give us a space of grace. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Our Father. Wait. I'm thinking I'm in Mass right now. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, we could use two prayers. We can always use two prayers. Anyway, on behalf of the whole steering committee and Campaign for Liberty in Harford County, I welcome you tonight. How many people are here for your very first Campaign for Liberty meeting, at least in Harford County? All right, great, thank you. Good. If you believe Wikipedia, not that I'm saying don't believe it, but it just says that Wikipedia, the Campaign for Liberty, is a political organization founded by 12-term United States Congressman Ron Paul. Campaign for Liberty focuses on educating elected officials and the general public about constitutional issues, that is for sure, and currently provides a membership program. It's a 501c nonprofit. Here's what Campaign for Liberty stands for, and then I'm going to wrap this up because we've got some great speakers and some really, really interesting topics tonight. Our mission is to defend the great American principles of individual liberty, constitutional government, sound money, that would be great for a change, free markets, we don't even recognize what that is in today's economy, and a non-interventionist foreign policy. This is what the founders believed in, and it took me a while to actually align myself with what the founders believed in that regard. But that's what Campaign for Liberty stands for. We're glad you're here tonight. I think you'll find that you're in the company of some of the finest people in the county and in the state and in the country, and everybody's here as a volunteer. So nobody takes a salary, nobody, nobody takes a salary, nobody gets paid for what we do here. In fact, we actually have some costs. This room costs us $250 a night when we do it. It's once a month. It's always the fourth Tuesday of the month. And so we'll be here the fourth Tuesday in April, Lord willing, and we're still free to meet. So keep it on your calendar, the fourth Tuesday, and invite others. As the weather gets better, sometimes we really fill up this room. We've had as many as like 150 people. So we're so glad you're here tonight. And I'm getting the stretch thing. Are we done stretching? Okay. Our Father. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, Joe. I love Joe. Joe is he is so awesome.
7 Our Fathers.
I'll take one quick minute just to recognize the candidates that we have here. Campaign for Liberty is never a candidate forum because we are a nonprofit and because we have lots of important topics to discuss as well. But we're glad you're here if you're a candidate. We want to be a part of helping you succeed if you are dedicated to the principles of liberty, and we're pretty strong on that. Okay, we're not here to be political. We're here to be liberty-minded. We're here to save the country. So, but I do want to recognize the people who are running for office here, just because we have a minute, in no particular order, just because I have campaign literature here. Robbie Wagner is running for council president. You can just let people know you're there, Robbie. Thank you very, very much. This is a new introduction for me tonight. Jonathan Goff, Jr. is running in the 1st District of Maryland for Congress against Andy Harris. Jonathan Goff. And Eric Jackson is here. You couldn't miss his van. Eric Jackson running for county council. And Bob Peck is here running for sheriff. Bob Peck is right there. You're on independent, right? Independent, right, okay. And I know there's some other candidates here. Joe is here.
How about Mr. Bueller?
How about Mr. Bueller? No, I'm just kidding. Curtis Bueller is running for county council. District, yeah. His lovely wife Jean is also running for the Republican Central Committee. Joe, let us know all the stuff you're running for.
Yeah, school board and the RCC also, as is Gene.
Republican Central Committee. That's Joe Fleckenstein. You'll hear from Joe a little bit later. Is Mike here? How many people? Greg?
Greg Johnson. Running for school board and Central Committee as well.
Yep. Greg Johnson. Awesome guy. Christina Trotta. If I mention any names and I don't mention others, just don't kill me. But Christina Trotta running for Republican Central Committee. Scott DeLong is running again for the Republican Central Committee. He's on the Republican Central Committee. Who am I forgetting? Oh, go ahead.
Ryan Bridgen running for Central Committee.
All right. He's got a great last name. Bridgen. All right. Sharon Beam is running for Republican Central Committee. Yep. Sharon Beam. She might do really, really well. Remember how well Joan Ryder did, because Sharon is a very well-known realtor in the county. Anyone else that I'm forgetting? I apologize. No? Okay. Good. Yep.
My daughter, Jan Christensen Hawk, is running for Central Committee.
Okay. Jan Hawk is running for.
Working right now.
Okay. Yeah. She's your office. All right, great. What's that?
I'm running for my life.
You're right. that's my line that I use all the time. I was yeah, are you running for anything? Just for my life. All right. So without any further ado, yes, no, maybe so. Okay. Our first speaker tonight is on immigration. This is a talk that we had scheduled earlier in the year, and we had to bump it because things went long. And so I'm going to stop being long now, and I'm going to bring up Scott DeLong and take it away, Scott. No, I didn't practice that stupid pun.
Thanks, Lowell. Okay, immigration. All right, I was asked last month to make a few comments about immigration, and it was a lot more in the news then than it is right now, although it's still in the news. But what I thought I'd do is try to take a few minutes and kind of cut through some of the noise on this and make some remarks about immigration, legal and illegal. Legal immigration is cool. We're all down with that. But the Obama administration and House of Representatives are pushing for comprehensive immigration reform. Yeah, Mom. And what they're going to do is they're going to fix our broken immigration system, which, by the way, was engineered by Ted Kennedy in 1965, so we shouldn't have any reason to know why it's broken. The data I'm going to share with you is from a bunch of various different sources. Eagle Forum did a big study on massive immigration, the Annenberg Policy Center, the U.S. Census, Harris Polling, CBO, Real Clear Politics, among a few other things. The report produced by Eagle Forum reveals how immigration is fundamentally changing the electorate to one that is much more supportive of big government. Under the current policy, 11 million new immigrants are added to America each decade. 11 million. Now, we know that the Democrat Party is fully on board with massive illegal and legal immigration, but what's more troubling to me, and should be to most people that are conservative, is the glee with which the GOP leadership is running down the aisle holding hands like ready to jump off the cliff with Chuck Schumer and his counterparts. Now, a peek under the covers of this kind of reveals that the House leadership that begged for the return of the keys in 2010 are spooning with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, who are funding primary challenges to Tea Party congresspersons and big GOP donors on K Street to fund their campaigns. They want the cheap labor for their businesses, and the Democrat Party wants newly minted voters. So the GOP is trying to sell the notion, and by what I'm trying to say is like the leadership of the GOP, like Cantor, Boehner, Kevin McCarthy, etc., are trying to sell this notion, which really is like a hookah smoking caterpillar, as we'll see here, in a couple minutes. By itself, the annual flow of 1.1 million legal immigrants under the current system will create an incredible harvest of new voters. The Congressional Budget Office projections indicate that under the most recently, Gang of Eight's Senate bill, S744, the additional potential new voters would rise to nearly 10 million by 2024 and by 18 million by 2028. This influx of new voters would reduce or eliminate Republicans' ability to offer alternatives to big government and to increased government spending, higher taxes, and to favor liberal policies such as Obamacare and gun control. This influx will have negative impacts on the drawing of congressional districts as well as state house districts and county council districts. These immigrants typically come from nations where limited government, checks and balances on government, separation of powers, and free market capitalism are not ingrained values. And these immigrants often have negative views of these values. There's a couple of reasons for this. One is that most immigrants come from countries where government has a much larger role in society. And also, they move to urban liberal areas like Baltimore, sanctuary city of Baltimore, where liberal elites reinforce those values as well as the identity and grievance-based politics of which the Democrat Party is famous. So it shouldn't be no surprise that supporting massive numbers of liberal voters helps the Democrat Party win elections. A top official at the SEIU and the Democrat Socialists of America, Eliseo Medina, has admitted that expanding the Democrat electorate through immigration is the goal because it will, quote, solidify and expand the progressive coalition for the future, unquote. Ree Teixeira of the Liberal Center for American Progress states, quote, Hispanic opinions on the role of government are very much aligned with that of the Democrat Party, unquote. Indeed, Teixeira goes on to continues that for Republicans to simply change positions on immigration will make no difference because Republicans must move on the, quote, role of government if they are to have any chance of making inroads with immigrant voters, unquote. So in essence, the factors that contribute to the immigrants' liberalism are largely outside of the control of conservatives in general and the GOP in particular. Even if we were successful, the outreach and conversion to conservative values is not going to outstrip the 11 million new liberal voters that are being added each decade. Hispanics and Asians, who account for 3/4 of today's immigrants, generally agree with the Democrats' big government agenda, and this is the reason why they vote 2-1 for Democrats. So this is what you'll see. It's like some of their policy preferences you'll see. Compares native-born immigrants, Hispanics, Asians, and all other immigrants. And you can see that on all of these issues, they are far more liberal than native-born. and so you can see this is from 2008 and this is from 2010. And you can see the numbers are growing as you get down here. So the 2008 Annenberg National Study found 62% of immigrants prefer a single government-run healthcare system. The 2010 Cooperative Congressional Election Study found that 69% of immigrants support Obamacare, as you can see there. Democrat strategist Simon Rosenberg stated that, quote, no group will benefit from the Affordable Care Act more than Hispanic Americans. And he says that conservative opposition to the Affordable Care Act will be seen by many Hispanics as an effort to deny them health care. Those are his words. The Pew Center also found that 53% of Hispanics have a negative view of capitalism, the highest of any group surveyed. Again, just think about what are politics like in South America? What are politics like in Mexico? Venezuela is socialist. Cuba is socialist. Most of the countries in South America, Argentina, massively socialist. Bolivia, socialist. So these are not surprising. But Pew also reported that 55% of Asian Americans, quote, prefer government providing more services, unquote, while only 36% prefer smaller government. So it's no surprise that in 2012, 71% of Hispanics and 73% of Asians voted for Obama. Even conservative Republican emphasis on patriotism and national sovereignty is likely to alienate many immigrants. The Harris poll found that 81% of native-born Americans believe that our schools should teach students to be proud of being American, compared to only 50% of immigrants who become naturalized U.S. citizens. Only 37% of naturalized citizens, compared with 7% of native-born, think that our Constitution is a higher legal authority than international law. Okay? So you can see, even if we're successful in converting these people to these ideas, it's not going to outstrip the numbers that are just cascading into the country. Significant majorities of immigrants and their children are big government liberals, as we've seen. The New York Times Washington Bureau wrote last year, quote, the two fastest growing ethnic groups, Latinos and Asians, are decidedly liberal, unquote. The New York Times stated, quote, immigrants are well to the left of the American public on a number of key issues, unquote, and it also makes clear that liberalizing immigration will, quote, liberalize the U.S., which is the goal, as you can see from this chart. Now, Heather McDonald of the Manhattan Institute points out that it's not immigration policy that creates a strong bond between Hispanics and the Democrat Party, but the core Democrat principles of a more generous social safety net, strong government intervention in the economy, and progressive taxation. Another important conclusion of the Eagle Forum's survey and the Annenberg is that there's no evidence that amnesty or inviting more immigration will produce conservative Republican votes. There's abundant evidence that it will produce more Democrat votes. Ronald Reagan got 37% of the Hispanic vote in the 1984 landslide election, where he won every state except Minnesota, where Walter Mondale was from. After Reagan signed the 1986 amnesty bill, which gave 3 million illegal aliens amnesty, which was a huge number at the time, George W. Bush, immediately after, the next election after, percentage of the Hispanic vote dropped to 30%. So why should we think that doing more of the same is going to change the result? The amnesty called for a completion of the 86 amnesty, called for a completion of the border fence from San Diego to Brownsville. Now, if they were to agree on something, on comprehensive immigration reform, is there any reason for us to believe that the Obama administration would enforce the controls and increase border security in any new amnesty deal any more than they've enforced the law in any other aspect of our society to date? I don't think so. But apparently John Boehner, Lindsey Graham, and John McCain think that there is. Those supporting a big increase in illegal immigration point to the successful assimilation of the Great Wave immigrants from the 1880s to the 1920s. But that was followed by an immigration slowdown from the 20s to the 60s, which allowed these newcomers to assimilate, learn English, adapt to a new system of government. And also, there's a great wave of immigrants, which a lot of our ancestors were probably in, arrived before the rise of the modern welfare state and grievance industry politics. So when they came here, there wasn't an ACLU lawyer and a Democrat congressperson waiting for them when they got off to tell them how to get signed up for everything in the world and how they were getting screwed over by everybody. So it took decades before a significant share of these immigrants moved into the Republican column, but in the meantime, the great wave of immigrants and their children provided much of the political support that was required to pass and sustain FDR's New Deal and LBJ's Great Society and all those welfare programs that resulted from that. It is also the case that the Republican Party's continued support of massive immigration, not to mention massive increases in the Gang of Eight bill, is contributing to the alienation of the Republican conservative base. Ask Mitt Romney. In 2012, 4 million people stayed home and didn't vote. 4 million less people stayed home and didn't vote. Comprehensive immigration reform means big increases in immigration. Defeating amnesty for 20 million people and big increases in illegal immigration will prevent an acceleration of these negative demographic shifts, but it still leaves in place policies that contribute to loose labor policies, which keep wages low, and also slows the movement of immigrants that are here into the middle class, where they'd be more receptive to like the conservative message. The future flows of unrestricted immigration and those low wages that it drives hurts those immigrants that are already here. Reducing immigration helps to stabilize the wage situation, and under the current system, if nothing is done, 40 million new immigrants will come to America between now and 2036. 40 million. Now consider the population of the United States right now is only 310 million. So that's a huge number. And there would still be illegal immigration. So even with all of that, there would still be illegal immigration happening. Now, understand, this doesn't mean that immigrants are bad people. Most immigrants are very hardworking people. They love their families. Many of them are religious, but platitudes about immigrants being hardworking doesn't make them conservatives in the voting booth and when it comes to how they view the size and scope of government. The political values and preferences of the immigrant community are deeply felt, and they're not going to be changed with slick 30-second TV ads. It's just not going to happen. Without an immigration reduction, New York and San Francisco are the future of America. A third of their populations are foreign-born, and the politics of both of those cities are decidedly liberal, as we know. As conservatives, we can appeal to immigrants without sacrificing our principles. And a way to do this is to argue that by defeating the Gang of Eight bill and comprehensive reform, with its amnesty and doubling of illegal immigration, will actually benefit the 60 million American citizens, many of them who are immigrants, who are not working. If employers are really having trouble finding workers, the private enterprise solution would be to raise their pay. But if you continue to have an influx of low-skilled people, those wages are going to continue to be depressed. A tight labor market is the best anti-poverty program. A reduction in immigration would also take the pressure off of already overloaded healthcare systems, school systems, and would facilitate the assimilation of immigrants that are already here. We've had an unbelievable amount, like in the last 10 years. The Eagle Forum report also makes clear that for conservatives, there's no more important item than to reduce the amount of illegal immigration coming into the country each year, because if illegal immigration is not reduced, it is going to be, like I said, nearly impossible for conservatives to be successful on the issues. And to see this, really all you have to do is look at the UK. Does anybody read any of the English newspapers? Know anybody that lives in the UK? Anything like that? Okay. Well, the UK is a canary in the coal mine for the United States. Everything that happens there comes here eventually. The Conservative Party there, the Tories led by David Cameron, the erstwhile Conservative Party, they really, their welfare state is like so built out. They have so many people that are on the dole from their former colonies that have come into the country that really all they can do is kind of nibble around the edges of the UK Leviathan. There's really not much they can do. This thing just kind of continues on autopilot and gradually gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the Tories in the UK would not even be considered a conservative party in the United States. They would be somewhere, to the left of most of what's of the Republican Party. So the political motivation of these groups pushing higher immigration and amnesty is obvious. The Democrats promote large-scale immigration because it produces more Democrat votes, and the GOP leadership continues to push this because their big donors want a continued source of cheap labor for the establishment of the party's big donors. If the Republican Party is to remain conservative and nationally competitive, conservatives have to defeat this amnesty bill and any proposed increases in immigration. So rather than courting a group of people through amnesty and big increases in legal immigration, a group of people that will not vote conservative, by the way, no matter what you do, the key for conservatives and the Republican Party in particular is to significantly reduce the decline in turnout among non-college educated white voters and just working class people in general and their base. Their base is not turning out. So you got to turn that out. You got to give them a reason. You got to give them something to go out and vote for. It's estimated that between 4 and 6 million working class voters stayed home in 2008 and 2012. That's an enormous number when you think about it. The decline in this demographic is the reason that the GOP did so poorly in these two elections after the 2010 tidal wave that restored Republican control of the House of Representatives. Conservatives in general and the GOP in particular need, like I said, to give people a reason to go to the polls. These are exactly the type of voters who are going to be harmed by fewer jobs and depressed wages if the GOP surrenders on illegal alien amnesty and increased legal immigration. President Reagan demonstrated that an understanding of working class Americans, and he got their votes. This demographic used to belong to the Democrat Party, and it's there for the conservatives to pluck. I mean, all you got to do is go talk to them if we speak to their values. So fighting for these principles would demonstrate our concern for their future and put them into our column and vote for our candidates. So the job of you guys as activists when you leave here tonight, I'm going to send you out of here with a mission, is you got to call Boehner's office and you got to call Cantor's office and you got to tell them a few things. You have to demand a few things in return for your support, because I don't know about you, but frankly, I'm tired of being lied to and ripped off. Writing a check for a donation during election season when they're telling me how conservative they are, and then they go down there and they start voting for unlimited budgets, amnesty, you name it, that's stealing. They're stealing from me. They're stealing from every donor who they convinced to contribute to them based on what they were promising to do. So you need to demand a few things. Secure the border. That was the top priority in the Pledge to America in the run-up to the 2010 election. Enforce current immigration law. No amnesty under any circumstances. No codifying the DREAM Act in Congress. That's the other thing that they're talking about. Cantor and Boehner, they're all talking about doing like a federal DREAM Act. Remember when George Bush wanted to do it in 2006 and everybody flipped out and like melted the phone lines? All right, they're coming back for another bite at the apple, and our guys are helping them do it. Eliminate the visa lottery. It's another thing. Limit skilled immigration to those that are truly exceptionally talented persons. And then, of course, we want to allow refugees in who truly, really don't have any place to go. So even cutting immigration by 50% from its current level would still make the United States the largest recipient of immigrants in the world.
Nobody does the things that we do. Nobody lets people come into their country like we do. Nobody has no control of their borders like we do. Obama was spouting off today in Holland about, the sanctity of the borders of the Ukraine. What about the sanctity of our borders? When do we get to be safe? I wish he cared as much about the borders of the United States of America as he does about the Ukraine, which doesn't have anything to do with us at all. So, at the end of the day, the Republican Party can change its position on immigration, or it's going to be forced by demographics to change its position on everything else. That's just a fact. And again, the toothless Tory party in the UK serves as the poster child for the future GOP if we don't get tough and demand better from our people. But sadly, many in the GOP leadership would rather cut a deal with the devil and serve in hell rather than rule in heaven. Activists like us need to bring the GOP and its leadership, who claim to be conservative party during the election season, to heel. They need to be made to stand and fight for conservative principles when it matters in the legislative season. As we always talk about, connecting the legislative season to the election season. We expect these people to be fighters for principle. If they're not, then they're going to have primary opponents and they should be voted out because they're not representing our principles. These people, thanks. But I'm serious about this because these people took an oath. I took the oath, they all took the oath. They took the oath to the U.S. and the Maryland Constitution. And don't forget about the Maryland Constitution. If they're not willing to uphold their oath, I'm sorry, they gotta go.
Amen.
That's it. Border, language, culture. If you don't have those three things, you don't have a country. That's just a fact. So I'll leave you with a little thought, which is kind of a nice segue into our next piece here. This is a quote from Ben Franklin. And here's what Mr. Franklin had to say when he spoke to politicians and ambition. And these traits define a lot of people in both parties who are pushing for amnesty and a lot of other things that you're going to hear about later. But here's what Mr. Franklin said, quote, "There are two passions which have a powerful influence on the affairs of men. These are ambition and avarice, the love of power and the love of money. Separately, each of these has a great force in prompting men to action. But when united in a view of the same object, they have in the minds of many the most violent effect. Place before the eyes of such men a post of honor that shall have at the same time a place of profit, and they will move heaven and earth to obtain it." And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
We are honored to have people of the caliber, thank you, Scott, of Scott DeLong and the other speakers here tonight. It's just a blessing to know them, to be part of what we do together. We're going to do some quick things here. We do have open mic night. We've got open mic night. Sounds like a comedy club. Sorry. Where's the brick wall? We have open mic time, and we have 3 speakers, and we're going to ask them to stick within that 2 to 3 minute time frame for sure. And you guys know who you are, but just to let you know, Don Bates, you're first. Al Smith, you're on deck, and Hugo, you're in the hole. I don't use those terms lightly. That's just from baseball. But anyway, we're going to do something really quick, and that's reward and recognize the people who are here for the very first time. And so we're going to draw for a Campaign for Liberty t-shirt. This is a small, petite small. You can trade it for any size that might actually fit your body. Okay, they're in the back. Okay, so don't feel like you have to try to use this one just to wash your car with or something. You can get one that'll fit you. 252. 252 is the winner. 252. All right. That might even fit you. They make her drive here tonight, and so look, she gets the t-shirt because she deserves that t-shirt. And then we have 3 actually. Guide to Sound Money by Judy Shelton. Phenomenal information. Tell you what, we don't have 254, 254, 254, 254, and we have 3 of them. So 253, 253, 253. Okay. And 251. That's you. Thanks. And did 254 come along now? And the last one, anybody that's having a red ticket that hasn't won is going to win right now. I can just tell you right now. You can just relax. 250. 250. All right. There you go.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Joe Price. All right. Good job. All right. The books are one size fits all. Don Bates, come right up. Don Bates and Al Smith, you're on the hole, in the hole, and Hugo, you're on. I mean, Al, you're on deck.
Right. I have just two brief things to mention. The first thing is, I am now a documented voter registration volunteer. So I want to ask, is there anybody here tonight that isn't registered to vote?
And
Very
so they
good.
can see you, right? You're right up front.
Right, I'm right up here.
Okay, good.
All right, the other thing I wanted to mention was, before I get into the next thing, I was around talking to a neighbor the other night about registering to vote. And there was a man there that was a judge at one of the polling places here in Hartford County. And he told me that it is illegal for them to require identification to vote in Maryland. I never knew that. Is that true?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess if you know of anybody that's not voting, you can vote for them. Okay,
It's being done in other parts of the state, for sure.
yeah, okay,
That's why we need judges.
Yeah.
yeah. All right, I have a paragraph to read here. I get the military magazine, and there was a one paragraph article that I wanted to read. Remittances. The Central Bank of Mexico reported that in 2013, it received approximately $21.6 billion in remittances from Mexicans working abroad, down almost 4% from 2012. The vast majority of remittances come from Mexican citizens working in the United States. $21.6 billion that should be spent in this country is being spent in Mexico. Something's wrong somewhere. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Don. Al, you're up. Hugo, you're on deck.
How you doing? Was it Newt Rockney who always started his football season with "This is a football"? He started with the basics. Well, everybody, this is the Maryland Constitution, and I think you should read it. If you go to Annapolis, you can get 10 copies per person, okay? And I highly recommend you read it. I don't know if anybody's aware of the assault on the sheriff's department throughout the country, but I just posted the one in my Facebook, I think somewhere in Colorado, that was having a law enforcement gathering, and the mayor of the town told the sheriffs they had to leave their guns home. And I think most of them turned around and went home. But what they're trying to do is turn this country into a police state. When they allow you not to vote on your sheriff, you're done, okay? Anyhow, anybody heard of Sheriff Mack, Richard Mack? Anybody heard of him? Yep. Okay. Well, he sued the Clinton administration over that midnight basketball crapola, and Supreme Court came down with their decision. I think the repeater's on here. Says the order of the court we hold in New York that Congress cannot compel the state to enact or force any federal regulatory program. Can you say EPA? All right. Basically, he's saying that the states are sovereign, and that's what our new governor, whoever he is, going to have to recognize. they're sovereign, they don't have to roll over to the federal government, and they should reactivate the militia. Anyhow.
I wanted to talk to you briefly about smart meters. And I've talked to you, given you updates periodically, and what I wanted to tell you is that BG&E is in Harford County right now. And they've been here, and they're knocking on all our doors. They're all over Bel Air right now.
Aberdeen too.
Aberdeen too? Where else?
Darlington.
Darlington, they're everywhere. Because the first quarter of 2014 was when they were going to be in Harford County. And they're here in droves. So I just wanted to let you all know that. And they are not necessarily abiding by the letters that we sent in for opting out. And a couple things I need to tell you. One is that the Public Service Commission did finally approve a permanent opt-out for Maryland residents and ratepayers. So that's important. That happened maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. On March 4th and 6th, they had hearings held down in the House and the Senate for 2 bills. And the 2 bills had different numbers for the House and different numbers for the Senate, but they both were for the same thing. One bill was for no cost opt-out, and the second bill was for for BG&E not to allow them to share the information that they gathered from the smart meters with a third party. Both bills died. They were not voted passed. And we thought that the House had something going for it. Yes?
I want to say something about that.
Yes, Becky?
Those bills were going to die in committee no matter what, but I want everybody in this room to know that every single Republican on the Economic Matters Committee, except one,
Yes.
voted against those bills.
Yes.
Including representatives from Harford County and Jeannie Hadaway-Riccio, who wants to be your next lieutenant governor running for that position with the county executive. They talk about hooking up the legislative session with the election session.
Yes.
They need to be held responsible for those votes.
Absolutely. No question about it. Yes. So that's all I have. I just wanted to give you an alert on that. Thank you.
Thanks very much. That is, if you don't know about that issue, study it because it's something you don't want on your attached to your home. Thanks. What's that? Stop touching the mic. It's higher than handicap week, so he has to tell me what to do. It's okay. Right now we've got something really important because this is an issue that probably a lot of people don't even know about because, to be honest with you, I ran for a Republican Central Committee several years ago. And before I even ran for that committee, I really didn't know a lot about it. I mean, I did by the time I was running, just so you know. Don't think badly of me. But it's something that exists, and it's a pillar, it's a grassroots pillar of the Republican Party. It's a way that we can have influence that we don't normally have because we're the grassroots, okay? It's the first step of influence, and it's very, very vitally important. It's the first step to take control of the Republican Party, to move it, not to take control for our own greed and avarice, like Scott was talking about as far as for power and for profit, but to take control, to move it back to a liberty party, to move it back to give us a choice. You know, there's no choice anymore most of the time. So we're going to have speakers talking about the importance of that committee and then what's being done to actually subrogate that. Oh yes, okay, thank you very much. There's something very important. Don't touch the mic. And also hand out the things to give donations so that we can pay for this room tonight. Okay, so thanks, Sylvia. Before I bring our next speaker up, I do want to make mention that we do have to support this room at robocalls, letters, campaigns, mails, all that kind of stuff. No salaries, But we appreciate you guys helping us tonight to make this thing possible every month. Again, just the nut for this meeting room is $250. We're going to pass this around. Feel free to donate generously. We appreciate that greatly. And I'll start from the back and I'll start from the front too. Okay. While you're giving, I'm going to bring up our next speaker, and he is Joe Fleckenstein, someone I've grown to know and love and appreciate because he is untiringly working for your liberty and to protect your constitutional freedoms. Seriously, there are people who show up all the time and do all the hard work, and you know it's a small percentage, and Joe Fleckenstein is one of those people, and he deserves all of your applause right now. So Joe Fleckenstein.
So our talk tonight is actually the first part of a 4 or 5 part series. We'll have questions at the end. I have the easy part. I get to talk about the RCC-HC. You'll see a handout in front of you that looks something like this. Hopefully all of you have this. Yeah, I think you do. So, what's up? Oh. Yeah, so I may refer to this as the RCC, just to make it easier to say. So I had no idea what this was 5 or 6 years ago, but as Lowell said, this is the first line that actually allows the Republican voters to have a voice in each of the counties. So we have an RCC in Harford County here. The RCC is based on the population of the county, population of Republicans in the county. The 70,000 Republican voters in this county are the ones who elect these men and women. In our particular county, there's 12 people that are elected every 4 years. Last time there was an election was 2010, next time is 2014. You saw 6 or 7 awesome people tonight that are running for it, so please vote for all those people, and me, hopefully. Now, other counties have lesser amounts, some have more. Cecil County has 9, for example. Montgomery County has like 48 people, so it's a real range of people that are out there. Each of the 23 counties plus the city has representation, has an RCC, and the members of each of these RCCs essentially are the ones who form the state Maryland GOP. So there's actually anywhere from 213 to 230 members of the state GOP, in essence, made up of these people. Sometimes there are vacancies. It's really easy to become a member, or at least to qualify for it. All you have to do in Harford County is to be an actual resident of and registered voter of the county, and to have a party affiliation of Republican, and maintain that for your time in office. If you go to the second page of the handout, if you're elected to this wonderful body of people, you have a lot of responsibility, actually, and like being in Campaign for Liberty, it's actually an unpaid position. You're actually a volunteer, so these people deserve a lot of praise. The first thing is you're one of the official spokespeople of the Republican Party for Harford County. That's a big responsibility, and you cooperate with other Republicans at the state level. You work with the Republican clubs and organizations in the county, and now that C4L is making a bigger impact, they're working with us more too, which is fantastic. We love that. You actually help to support and elect Republican candidates for office. That's a very important duty. You engage in fundraising. Republican candidates after the primary need funds, and that's one of the main activities of being on this group. One of the most important parts is to promote the principles, objectives, and platforms of the Republican Party at the local level. There is an actual Republican Party platform, as you all know, at the RNC level, at the state level. So we need to actually enforce that at the county level. Now, at the very end of my page 2, there are 2 things that don't happen very often, but are still really important. Occasionally, there will be someone who leaves office because they're moving away or some other reason, they're sick, whatever the case is, or it's just a vacancy. Unfortunately, in the city, and a couple other counties around the state, there are often vacancies, just not enough people that are running for this office. We have no problem here in Harford County. We have 12 seats and we have 32 people running. I mean, that's incredible. Montgomery County's got more people running, a couple of other ones do have more, but their population is so much larger than ours, so people in Harford County must love Republicans. I mean, that's a good thing. But there are times when there are vacancies, so the members of the RCC either appoint or make recommendations to find replacements for those people. Also at the Harford County Council level and at the Maryland General Assembly level, if people ever leave those offices, the people in the RCC will either appoint or make recommendations for new people to come on until brand new people can be elected in the next cycle. The final one is something I didn't really know about until recently, and it doesn't happen very often, and hopefully it won't happen very often, but it's the duty and responsibility of the RCC to hold all elected officials accountable in cases when elected officials fail to act or act in such a way which is deemed to be detrimental to the Republican Party and or the citizens of Harford County or for each county. That's a pretty big duty. Doesn't happen very often, don't like when it does happen, but it is a responsibility that you have being on there. Now, one of the cool things about the RCC in Harford County is a number of people that are on it currently got their start in a local Tea Party or through Candidate for Liberty here, which is cool. The current group in Harford County has done a really good job, and that's not just six or seven people. That's all 12 members doing a really good job. Now, the RCC-HC has actually put out 6 goals that they wanted to accomplish over the next year or so, and actually they've accomplished 3.5 of these 6 goals. Those goals are to have an increase in registration, Republicans over people on the left, of at least 4,000 by 2014, and it's over 5,000, so that's actually a really good accomplishment in this county to do that. Another thing that's actually been done, and I've looked at the Board of Elections website, I've seen it for myself, is to find at least one Republican candidate for every seat in Harford County between now and between 2013 and 2014. That's been done. We have people running for all offices. That's great. Other counties, Montgomery County, some of the more liberal-leaning areas have trouble finding Republicans to run for all the seats. That's tough, but up here we have no problem doing that. It's important that the RCC-HC gets out, that they're out at fairs and events, talking to people, recruiting people for office, just telling people what's going on out there. So one of their goals was to get a presence in at least 8 events between now and the end of 2014, and they've actually fulfilled that as well. They'll have more fundraisers and things coming up later this year. They also have a goal to elect 6 Republicans to the Harford County Council. We won't know if that works until Election Day, of course, and we have 1 or 2 people in this room that are running, and we hope that they win. They've also gotten half of a goal, which is to establish a written plan before June 15th, 2014 to elect those 6 Republicans. So they're halfway there with that written plan. The one problem that they've had so far is actually raising money. They raised a good amount of money the first couple years, 2010, 2011, somewhere in that range, kind of fell off a little bit. They would like to raise at least $1 per registered Republican in the county by the general election, which would be $70,000. Probably not going to happen, but if we can at least start raising some more money, start an upward trend, that would be the ultimate way to go. And then finally, on the last page, is beyond the county level, like how does being on the RCC impact the state or the national? Believe it or not, it actually does have an impact at the state and the national level. The members of each RCC essentially meet twice a year, once in the spring, once in the fall, to amend the Constitution and elect officers to the Maryland GOP. There's actually the spring conference is coming up in the near the Rockville area in April, I believe. So that's going to be coming up pretty soon. Our people will be attending that, or they'll be sending proxies to attend that too. And then every 2 years, at the state level, the RCCs around the counties, they elect a chairman, 3 vice chairmen, a secretary, and a treasurer to form the state GOP. It's another very important function. Now, at the whenever there's a presidential election every 4 years, the state GOP comes together to decide how many representatives from Maryland will go to the RNC, to the National Convention. And they can even decide if Maryland holds a primary or a caucus. That's very cool. I didn't even know that. And I hope one day that we have a caucus here. That'd be great for our grassroots people. And then every 4 years, are you guys familiar with Lewis Pope or Nicolai Ambrose? Okay.
Lewis Pope, the chairman, he was the ex-chairman of the GOP.
Right. So every year, at the national level, there's a man and woman who are elected from each state, and from our state, it's the 2 of them, and the 2 of them, along with the Maryland GOP chairman, Ms. Waterman, they represent Maryland at the RNC meetings throughout the year, every year, during their time where party policy, platform, and rules are voted for implementation. I'm going to be controversial for a second. While Nicolai Ambrose has done a very good job, in my opinion, Lewis Pope has not, from a grassroots point of view. He changed the rules on us in 2012, which made it hard, difficult. Well, what's that?
He didn't change it.
He didn't change, but he helped work towards.
He whipped the votes to make.
He whipped the votes, right, to making a rule change to make it hard for grassroots candidates running for president, the ones that don't have a lot of money, to have an active voice at the RNC. So one of the cool things about being on an RCC throughout the state is that we can actually appoint these people and we can actually kick them off when they do bad things. So,
Yeah.
yes. So that's basically the end of my little presentation. All I wanted to say was at the bigger, larger level, we at the county level actually have a lot of influence and say what happens in presidential politics and policies at the state level. Well, with that, we're going to go into House Bill 1513, which is a very controversial bill that many of you in the room, many people in Harford County, Baltimore County, throughout the state have been fighting. For more on that, please welcome my friend, Greg Johnson. Thanks, Greg.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and apologize in advance because I had a medical procedure today and I might still be feeling the effects of propofol. So if I fall asleep in the middle of my speech, just bear with me here. So we'll be talking about House Bill 1513, mainly just the language of it. So what we have here is actually a cross-reference, cross-section of the Annotated Code of Maryland, which the delegates from Harford County put forward this piece of legislation. They put it forward immediately following the filing deadline for the Central Committee, well, and the filing deadline for all positions. But it was obvious the timing of this. It's pretty clear. The beginning section up there in the line 3, where it begins 4, just gives you kind of a brief summary of the legislation, what it's trying to do. And then if you'll scroll down, Mike, to the next slide there, they have the actual section of the law that's already on the books. Let's see if I gotta raise this up. Sorry, guys. So what they've done is anything that's changing with this law, they have put it in bold. And so the first section is 4-203F. And that's this is only affecting Harford County here, keep in mind, because it's going through, you can see it starts with Anne Arundel County, then it goes to Baltimore City, and then if you scroll down further, Mike, you'll see Harford County, and that's where you'll see the bold letters there. Oh, there we go, okay. Keep going up. Down, I'm sorry, my fault. There we go, okay. So 24, go up just a slight bit there, Mike. There we go, okay. So section F here pertains to Harford County. Now, they've deleted the original language in section F of the law that's already on the books in the annotated code, and they've replaced it with this. Now this part right here is normal, okay? The number of members determined by the party's constitution and elected in accordance of this subtitle, okay? And then number 2 is where they've inserted themselves into a sovereign body in Harford County. It makes the delegates ex officio members of the actual party in the county of Harford. Can you scroll down for me?
Of the Central Committee.
Of the Central Committee, exactly. They may vote to fill a vacancy or remove a member from the Central Committee, but they cannot vote on any other matter. Section 3. This is where it gets really interesting, quite nefarious. Except for a Republican Party member of the House of Delegates, nobody else who's running for this position or who's serving in this position can serve in any other elected office in the county, except for those very delegates that are putting themselves on this committee by fiat.
How convenient.
If you scroll down further, Mike, to the very end, probably the most comical portion of this whole piece is section 2. And be it further enacted that this act is an emergency measure, is necessary for the immediate preservation of the public safety or health, has been passed by a yea or nay vote supported by 3/5 of all members elected to each of the 2 houses of the General Assembly, and shall take effect from the date it is enacted. So this is emergency legislation that is absolutely vital to the health and safety of all of you in this room and everybody who lives in Harford County, apparently. Because we're such a threat that they have to insert themselves on a committee to remove us. So that's pretty much it. That's the law, honestly. And I'm going to bring up Christina Trotta. She's a good friend of mine. She's a committed Christian and a mother of 2. And she is probably one of the best worker bees we have for the Liberty Movement. So come on up, Christina.
That was right. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. All right, good. Okay, I'm going to refer you back to this paper that I think everyone has on their table here. If you don't, there's probably some still in the back. And on the very last page of that paper, you're going to have one page titled "A Resolution Condemning HB 1513," which will be the title of my speaking tonight. Again, my name is Christina Trotta. I'm going to go over this resolution. It was passed unanimously by the Harford County Republican Central Committee last week in a closed executive meeting. Just to provide full disclosure, again, I am running for Central Committee for this year. So I will tell you that I am fully against this bill, but I'm going to try to remain as neutral as possible as I'm speaking about it and giving you a breakdown and giving you the committee's official response to the Hartford delegation. There are basically, if you go through this resolution here, 5 basic effects that the author gives and the committee gives that HB 1513 would have, and this resolution is going to enumerate them for you. So let's read the first effect, portions 1 and 2 on the resolution. Whereas the Republican Central Committee of Harford County, RCCHC, represents the Republican voters, that's all of you, of Harford County and is elected at large by the Republican voters of Harford County each gubernatorial election year, and whereas HB 1513,
Hartford County Republican Central Committee membership as written would subvert the will of the Republican voters of Hartford County for their choice of members of the RCCHC. We're going to break that down here to what the author is actually saying. The author is saying here that the Central Committee is elected by the specific voters of Hartford County. If the charter of the Central Committee were altered by 1513 at all, the voters would not be the ultimate authority for the committee. Instead, the delegation would actually be over the voters. And so, as neutrally as I can put that, the delegation would basically be saying, if I can have my next slide, Mike, we're smarter than the voter. I don't know if you can see that. That's your delegation there.
Part of it.
Part of it. Saying that they're smarter than the average bear. Because of the past, HB 1513 would allow the delegation to sit on committee in certain matters, and they in effect would not be voted on. Now they're voted on as delegates, but they're not voted on as central committee members. Now, effect number 2, if we go down to the next line, whereas HB 1513 as written would permit the addition of state delegates as ex officio members of the RCCHC without the consent of the Republican voters of the Hartford County, and whereas HB 1513 as written would permit state delegates who do not live in Hartford County and thus could not be elected to the RCCHC under current law to vote on removing and adding members from or to the committee. So effect number 2, the resolution details the specific ways in which the state delegates would write themselves into the charter. It's pretty self-explanatory that they would be sitting and removing or adding members, except that technically these delegates would be a majority over top your actual central committee. Your central committee is 12. Your state delegates are 7. Well, they're actually, the Republicans are 7. They could potentially have a majority vote over the central committee. And they could technically remove a person without the committee's consent, if they so chose to do so. So again, basically, saying as neutrally as possible, having the ability to tell the central committee, if we can have the next slide.
Christina, do all of those delegates live in Hartford County?
No, then that's what that says right there that I read. That delegates who do not live in Hartford County and thus cannot be elected under current law. But don't worry your pretty little heads about it. Again, they've got it covered, and they'll take it from here. Now the third effect that this bill would have, and the third effect that the resolution reads, come down to the next line, whereas political parties are independent of government, not appendages to it, HB 1513 violates the independence of political parties by elected officials of the state government by placing them on the RCCHC, which basically means there are reasons that we have separation of powers in our government, and separation of powers even down to the most local parts of our county. And one of those is so that one group cannot unduly influence another. So, for example, if you're on a central committee and you have a vote coming up and your delegates know how you feel exactly about this vote coming up on a resolution or on a committee action, and they don't like how you're leaning, would that delegate not have some sort of way to pressure you and say, put pressure on you to comply or threaten your position on that central committee? That's another effect that this bill, HB 1513, could have. We go to the fourth effect that the author gives us in the resolution. If you skip down one portion where it says, whereas HB 1513 usurps the power of the chairman of the Maryland GOP per its constitution and bylaws to fill RCCHC vacancies when the committee vote is deadlocked on the replacement. Now, in cases of stalemates, it has always been the duty of the chairman, currently Diana Waterman, to resolve such issues, and they have always been handled to conclusion. They have always been handled fairly as possible, and there's never been any kind of issue. To suddenly allow a state politician or multiple state politicians to insert themselves into the middle of those type of political party issues would detract from our state GOP. Yes, Scott?
Just as a point of clarification, when the committee is deadlocked on a replacement, the chairman of the county committee sends a name to the chairman of the state party for that chairman to review and then appoint. So that's the actual process.
Thank you.
But there is already a process.
But
It
there's,
already
right.
works. It's not
Correct.
broken. Only fixing it would just give these people more power.
And Scott, is this a process, just to clarify, is this a process that every county uses?
Yes.
Okay,
Used by
so,
every county.
so that's not one county, say Hartford County, being singled out? Okay,
And this also happened.
right. Okay, finally, we come to our fifth effect. The resolution states its last effect. Whereas the leadership of the Maryland GOP is firmly against HB 1513 as disruptive of party unity in an election season as a usurpation of its constitution of bylaws. So basically, in the ultimate example of party infighting, which we as grassroots people are always being attacked for, party infighting, right? The author here states, this bill is like a poison for the party. It's being written only for Hartford County Central Committee. Don't know why yet. Guess we'll find out soon. And it seems more of a personal vendetta or an attempt to stack the political deck than a needful piece of legislation. It made the Republican Party look like temperamental toddlers in the eyes of prospective members. Now remember, we're still trying to bring in people into the Republican Party, whether they're conservative, moderate, no matter how they feel. We need to grow the Republican Party. This does not grow the Republican Party, by no means. The resolution goes on to explain, in conclusion, down towards the end here, you see the quote, whereas William Pitt the Younger stated, necessity is the plea for every infringement of human freedom. It is the plea of tyrants. It is the creed of slaves. This is such a telling statement coming from this Hartford County Central Committee. Certainly we've seen tonight that this bill, which was hastily thrown together as emergency legislation, is an infringement on Hartford County voters' rights. To say HB 1513 is the plea of tyrants means it is a last-ditch effort of the powerful to get their way and to keep their power. But to go back to that word necessity, why did the Hartford County delegation feel it so necessary to sneak through this bill? Yes?
Who wrote the bill?
Who wrote the bill?
Valeria
The
was
delegation of
that
Hartford
leader.
County.
But Valeria was the leader of this, and it was basically co-sponsored by Wayne Norman, Kathy Slega, and Patrick Donovan.
The author of the resolution only hints at the reasons why in giving these 5 effects the bill would have. He does not attempt to reconstruct in giving us what the reasons the delegation would have. But I think we'll find in our conclusion of this presentation, Mr. Dave Pridgeon will be concluding our analysis with some theories as to why, which I think you'll find interesting. First, we'll hear from Vicki Seitzinger, though, and she's going to give us a summary of what the Harford County citizens and C4L have been doing to really fight this effort. Yes?
I've had delegates address my email. I have no idea. I'm sure that we know what they're telling us. At this point in time, they were saying that the lack of ability to hold fundraisers, the lack of the ability to appoint in-state people to fill voids, that's what they replied back to me. I don't know whether anybody else got this or not, but I received a letter in the mail. Basically, pretty much, and it's been pretty heated on talk radio, 680, I've been listening to that, and I got this in the mail. I don't know if anybody's seen this yet or not, but it's pretty much, I mean, everybody in this room we were called, we weren't talked to too highly about, from Pat Madonna. I can say I heard that first. And secondly, they're attacking Patrick McGrady and Ted Patterson. They've got
One thing I'd like to say about that, you'll notice that that letter is not signed.
Right. Does that letter
It's an
have a name
anonymous
on it?
letter, and they're talking about ethics complaints filed with the Board of Elections. They were never filed. So a coward sends out something like that, especially when they know that the allegations are untrue. Untrue. And we'll take questions at the end, by the way. We want to make sure Dave has plenty of time to talk. All right, thanks, Christina, good job. I don't want to minimize what you have to say. I'm sure Dave will speak to that as well, but
that's why I'm here, just because I would like questions answered.
they will be answered, and I'm glad you asked them. As a matter of fact, we have copies of those letters too. All right, my name is Vicki, and I'm here to talk about what Campaign for Liberty did to combat this affront. I think everybody did a great job explaining why this is a bad bill. I think that when I'm done, you'll be pretty impressed by the fact that this was an all-hands-on-deck effort. We've been pretty busy. For those of you in the audience that are Tolkien fans, there's kind of a Lord of the Rings theme running through this, and you get extra points if you can identify them. So, timeline against tyranny, it seems a little dramatic, but I don't think so. I think it's accurate. I think it reflects what's going on here. It's what we did and why we did it. Well, I'm going to tell you what we did, why we did it. This bill is bad for the Liberty Movement, which is all of you here, or else you wouldn't be here if you weren't part of the Liberty Movement. It's bad for the Republican Party, of which I'm assuming most of us are members of the Republican Party. I know I am. And it's bad for fair play and the lawful process. Why are we doing something just for Harford County, but not for the whole state? So the first thing we needed to do was we needed to identify the enemy. Isn't that what you do when you go into battle? Well, here they are. We've got our rogues gallery. The Harford County delegation, they're all there. If you're a member, if you're a citizen of Harford County, one of those people represents you. If you're a citizen of Baltimore County, there's a good chance that Kathy Schalager or Pat McDonough might represent you. And they look like nice people, and I've got to say that all of them have done things that I've appreciated them for. HB 1513 isn't one of them. But all of them, with HB 1513, think it's okay to dilute your voice and to use HB 15 to usurp the political process and basically create a political fiefdom by fiat where they can gain control of the political process. Here they are broken down by their districts. If you haven't called them, call them. Let them know how you feel about this. Just to let you know, Kathy Schalager, she's the minority whip. She sits on the committee where this bill would have been heard. After you identify the enemy, you engage them. And here's our first Tolkien reference, and so it begins. And if you can tell me where that came from, good for you. On March the 5th, even before March the 5th, Christina was getting in touch with bloggers, letting them know about this bill and letting them know what was going on. On March the 5th, our steering committee, Campaign for Liberty, had a conference call. We usually meet together where we talk about what we're going to do for you guys that month and what we're going to do that month. This month, we had a meeting with Liberty people from all around the state. That's how seriously this bill was taken. Our game plan, our battle plan was decided on, and the next day it went into effect. The next day, on March the 6th, you guys, hopefully you got them, got robocalls, got emails explaining HB 1513 and telling you to call your delegates and let them know how you feel about it. You all have packets in front of you. The first letter that went to the Dagger was also the email that was sent to you. It explains what HB 1513 is and why it's bad. So if you didn't see it already, the full text is there in front of you and you can take a look at it. On March the 11th, we were able to get this issue introduced on the Tom Marr Show, 680 WCBM. One of us called in, introduced the issue. Tom said, oh, that's not a good idea, but I'm going to get Pat McDonough on the radio to straighten this out. That's not what I call fair and balanced. And when Pat McDonough got on the radio, we'll talk about what he said. We'll talk about a little bit about what he said later on. But I can tell you when I called one of the delegates and said, hey, listen, you know, if you put yourselves on the committee like this, essentially what you've done is you've undone the will of the voters. And the verbatim, direct quote response I got was, the voters don't matter. When he was called on that, and I'm not going to tell you who it was, when he was called on that, or she, of course there was a lot of backtracking, but what comes out of your mouth first is usually what's in your heart. So the voters don't matter. They're more important to you. They know more about this than you do. Okay.
How do you feel that we have an election day?
We have conservative bloggers in Baltimore, in the state of Maryland. Christina was busy getting in touch with them and alerting them to this. By the time we were done, every conservative blogger in the state of Maryland was on our side in this. The first one, the Quinton Report, Jeff Quinton writes that. I'm not going to read it all because we don't have time, but let's take a look at some of what he said. This legislation seems to have no purpose other than letting the Harford County delegation kick people off. It is an attempt to sabotage the electoral process. Thank you. Succinct, to the point, we get it. Red Maryland. Words cannot describe how insane and radical this bill is. It smacks of elitism and meddling where it's not needed. And it's smug and devious. Yes, thank you very much. An insightful conservative blogger who knows how to use conservative principles when he looks at legislation to see what it's all about. And then Darkness Revisited, written by Joe Steffen. Some of you may remember the Prince of Darkness from the Ehrlich administration. Well, he's resurrected himself as a blogger called Darkness Revisited. I will let the title of his article speak for itself. And this is how tyranny enters. This is how tyranny enters. And this is how tyranny enters. Even in a little way, this is how tyranny enters. And he punctuated that sentiment with this. Oh, thanks, you did a nice job on that, Mike. With this cartoon. Personally, I don't care for the caption, but he was the author, I wasn't. The boot of tyranny, guess that. Guess who's under that boot? You and me. But notice the muscular response. We are not standing still for this. You see that muscle? I don't have one, but that's us. We are not standing still for this. So, let's go to the Tom Marr Show on the 11th. I have an audio clip I'll be playing for you. The quality's not great. Our wonderful audio magician, Mike, did the best he could to improve on it. But let's hear what Mr. McDonough had to say. The first person you're going to hear from on this is someone named Michelle. I have no idea who she is. She's not one of our Michelles. And then you'll hear McDonough's response. So I might need your help on this. Republican. Got it? Okay.
Because the Republican Party in this state doesn't have a backbone.
This is Michelle.
It hasn't had a backbone in years. The only thing that the Republican Party wants to do in this state is to maintain level of control of what their little piece of the power pie is. And coming from Pat McDonough, Pat, I am so disappointed. I am so disappointed with you and this move that you're trying to do here.
Okay, Michelle, we've heard what you've had to say. Now, let me tell you, the Republican Party is a Republican Party with Tea Party members in it. The Tea Party, if it tries to go on its own, will wind up totally defeated with nobody getting elected to anything. Pat,
First of all, one of the people, I'm having trouble hearing because I'm on the floor of the House. One of the people speaking on the floor of the House right now is Mike McDermott, a delegate from the Eastern Shore, fighting a liberal spending bill. Michelle doesn't know what the hell she's talking about, excuse my French. We have 43 delegates down here against 98 Democrats.
So did you hear that? Michelle doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. We know better than you. We'll take care of it. You know, like I said, I like a lot of what Pat McDonough Pat does. He's been great on environmental issues. He was great on gun control. He's way off on this one. But as hard as we were working here in Harford County, we had help from all over the state. Here's my next Tolkien reference for anybody that recognizes it. Harford County calls for aid, and Baltimore County will answer. Muster the robocallers and the lit droppers. And our brothers and sisters in liberty movements all across the state did just that. Baltimore C4L, 9,900 robocalls, and they paid for this out of their own money. 605 mailings to the donors of candidates that did this. So this is why they're upset, because their donors are hearing about this and saying, what the heck? Several hundred pieces of literature dropped in their neighborhood, so their neighbors who may be voting for them hear about this. And an extensive presence on social media. Their support was amazing, and we cannot thank our brothers and sisters in Baltimore enough. We had help all over the place, and I'm not going to go through this list because I want to leave plenty of time for Dave. But this is just a drop in the bucket of some of the people that have called, written letters. These are all officials of the Republican Party. One person I want to mention, Richard Rothschild, the Carroll County Commissioner, who has been such a mover and shaker in the liberty movement. This man has taken on Agenda 21. He's taken on Annapolis. He's instituted constitutional sheriffs in Carroll County. We need more men and women like Richard Rothschild. I'm a sexist. So anyway,
So was Bongino.
Who haven't we heard from? We've heard from all kinds of people. We've been working hard, but we have not yet heard from the Maryland GOP, the actual party. So they have not always been, as you know, supportive of grassroots movements in the past. They've been very closely tied to establishment Republicans. But here's a little Tolkien video that we're going to show that will lead us into the next piece. Can you play that video?
Well, you can run it.
I don't know how to do it.
Send for the king.
Can you?
Open the gate!
I bring word from Elrond of Rivendell. An alliance once existed between elves and men. Long ago we fought and died together. We come to honor that allegiance.
So anyway, I just love this movie. An old alliance is recalled, and apparently the Maryland GOP has remembered their conservative roots. They realized the harm that HB 1513 would do to this party, and Diane Waterman, our chairperson, has made public statements and has been working on our behalf to see to it that this bill never sees the light of day. working with the chair people to make sure it doesn't get out of committee, and asking the Hartford delegation to withdraw this bill, which has not happened. So, with all this pressure that the Hartford delegation has been getting from you, the voters, from us, grassroots people, from people around the state, and from their own party leadership, what have they done? They've doubled down. In conversations with constituents, they defend their actions. Mr. Impalaria and Ms. Shalega have sent out letters with the most preposterous justifications and explanations for this bill. And the second article in your packet is basically a refutation of every single justification for the bill. And I hope you look at it, because the reasons that they give for the bill are false and ridiculous. And they have continued support for HB 1513. So, we're not done. We respond to that. The second volley. On March the 12th, a second letter goes to the Dagger, and it's the same thing that you all got as emails and information and robocalls. And the point of that letter was to show how just ridiculous their justifications and rationale for the bill were. On March the 21st, Dan Bongino was the guest host he was standing in for Tom Marr, and without us calling in, without us providing any provocation at all, he took this up on his own and likened this to FDR stacking the Supreme Court when he just didn't care for the way things were going. We had a little piece on the Jimmy Mathis show, and then on March the 19th, our Hartford County Republican Central Committee unanimously passed a resolution of condemnation that was written by Scott DeLong. And that was a great success. We got everybody on that central committee that apparently is so dysfunctional, the delegation has to get in to set them straight. And yet every person on that central committee recognized how awful HB 1513 is. Tomorrow, I'm hoping that we have Greg Johnson's letter to the editor in the Aegis, and there will also be an article there. Hopefully, we'll see. I'm not the editor there, but we'll see what happens. So, who have we not heard from? We've heard from a lot of people, but there are some voices that we have not heard from. Some of them may be against this bill, but they have not made public statements, and that's what it takes. When you want to take on this kind of lawlessness, you have got to take a public stand. J.B. Jennings, haven't heard from him. Barry Glassman, he wants to be your next county executive. Maybe he thinks it's a great idea to stack the central committee. I don't know. We haven't heard from him. We need to hear from him. Nancy Jacobs, well, she's out the door. But if she believes in the rule of law and the process that we have in place, we need to hear from her. Nick Kipke, he's the House Minority Leader. He's one of the leaders in the Republican Party. Where is his voice? Hartford County Council, County Executive, nowhere. Haven't heard a word from them. Jeannie Hattie-Riccio, she wants to be your next Lieutenant Governor. Where is she? By the way, she also voted against all those smart meter bills. She made sure they didn't. She helped to make sure they didn't get out of committee. So, I'm done. Hopefully I didn't go too far over, and I'm going to ask Dave Pridgeon. He's going to bring it on home for you.
All right, I'm going to try and put this a little bit in a national perspective, okay? Because what we're seeing here, it just doesn't apply to Hartford County, all right? So, what does the GOP stand for? I know what we as conservatives in this room stand for. We stand for limiting the role of government, more local control of our lives, privacy, free markets, a sound dollar, a restoration of our republic. But what does the GOP stand for? Many of those in charge of the Republican Party and their allied talking heads in the press claim the GOP is conservative. While that is what they preach, in practice, they too expand the government. They want Washington calling the shots in our lives. They turn the free market towards their large donors. They prefer not to make eye contact with us on liberty issues. They focus on Wall Street, not Main Street. They, like the Democrats, offer platitudes to the middle class while ignoring the economics of the middle class. The basic message of Republicans in Washington these days is that they can control the Democratic created Leviathan better than the Democrats. But wait, we know they cannot. They will tinker with it, attempt to mend it, to control it, but in the end, they will not reduce it. When last the GOP ran everything in Washington, we got Medicare Part D, an expanded federal role in education, no child left behind. We got the GM bailout, we got TARP, the Troubled Asset Relief Program, the U.S. government's $700 billion financial bailout plan of 2008, just to name a few. Republicans even gave Democrats their assistance in banning the incandescent light bulb. If the Republican Party returns to power in Washington, the same people who did all this will again be in charge. Unfortunately, they will still stand for nothing unless a Pole or billionaire tells them otherwise. In short, the modern Republican Party has abandoned its principles. There are elements of the Republican Party and pundits like Ann Coulter who see the GOP as better than the Democrats are, consequently willing to trust in those in charge. They view the need for majority, like the upcoming Senate race, being so critical that they resent any and all boat rocking that might jeopardize the chance for a majority. So the battle for the heart and soul of the Republican Party has been joined. On one side is the Tea Party and the Liberty Movement, represented by thousands of grassroots activists from every corner of this country. On the other side stand Karl Rove and his establishment team, posing as tacticians while quietly undermining conservatism. The biggest donors of the Republican Party have joined forces with Karl Rove and Stephen Law, president of American Crossroads, to create the Conservative Victory Project. The new group will dedicate themselves to, and the following quote is from the New York Times, quote, recruit seasoned candidates and protect Senate incumbents from challenges by far-right conservatives and Tea Party enthusiasts who Republican leaders worry would complicate the party's effort to win control of the Senate, unquote. So who are some of the big donors that Karl Rove is lining up with? I'm going to give you just two. Randall Stevenson is CEO of AT&T and also presides over the Business Roundtable. The Roundtable is a business lobbying group that has the ear of Republican leaders. So they will undoubtedly be paying attention when Stevenson lumped Obamacare in with Medicaid and Social Security as entitlements worth keeping. Then we have Thomas Donahue, the head of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, who recently declared the Chamber, too, would start taking a pragmatic approach towards fixing Obamacare instead of keeping up the fight to repeal it. The Chamber is committing financial resources to opposing conservatives in Republican primaries who are most stridently committed to repealing Obamacare. But it is the American Crossroads and its ilk that have run the GOP into the ground, spending tens of millions of dollars on useless advertising campaigns during the last election cycle, training candidates to soften conservatism in order to appeal to moderates, blowing up a federal budget under George W. Bush as a bipartisan tactic, all those strategies leading to the party to a disastrous defeat in 2012. The Tea Party, which may nominate losers from time to time, also brought the Republicans their historic 2010 congressional victory. My friends, this is the difference. If Tea Party candidates lose, it's because they weren't good candidates and usually lacked money. But if GOP establishment candidates lose, it's because they weren't good conservatives. The choice for us as actual conservatives is easy. The Bush insider team that helped lead to the rise of Barack Obama insists that they, and only they, know the path to victory. As the New York Times reports, Conservative Victory Project won't merely protect incumbents, it will challenge sitting congressmen of the Tea Party variety, such as people like Justin Amash. Remember, their advice led to the epic Romney defeat, in which conservatives were told to vote for Romney in the primary, since he was the only candidate who could win and thus defeat Barack Obama. In truth, conservatism wins elections, so long as the messenger doesn't implode. But victory for conservatives isn't Karl Rove's goal. He is a political insider par excellence, at least according to him, and he's playing for his political life in the aftermath of 2012. And that means declaring war on the Tea Party. Then there is Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who just didn't merely say Tea Party candidates challenging him and other establishment Republicans in the 2014 midterm elections don't pose much of a threat. McConnell's prediction is arguably more along the lines of fighting words to the Tea Party. Quote, "I think we are going to crush them everywhere," unquote, McConnell told the New York Times. Quote, "I don't think they," meaning the Tea Party, "are going to have a single nominee anywhere in the country," unquote. And the list goes on and on. John Boehner, when talking about the criticism he received for the most recent debt deal, where they gave Obama a blank check for the next years with the nation's treasury, remarked while referring to the Tea Party, quote, "And frankly, I just think they've lost all credibility," unquote. So you see how it's starting at the top and it's working its way down. In numerous states across the country right now, the party establishment is trying hard to jettison Liberty and Tea Party supporters from the party. In my own personal experience, I can point to a dear friend, Chris Stearns, a member of the Virginia GOP's governing board, who Eric Cantor has been spending tens of thousands of dollars to defeat in his re-election race to the board. Then we come to Maryland, which is no different than anywhere else in the country where the grassroots is truly active and alive. I want to read for you a recent blog article that appeared in the Quinton Report, a respected independent political blog in the state, and Vicki referred to it just a moment earlier. The article was entitled, "Andy Harris versus Campaign for Liberty in Local Races." And the article was dated February 26, and this is what the blog had to say. "I had noticed some names on lists of Baltimore County Republican Central Committee candidates on the Board of Elections website that were people I knew were affiliated with Campaign for Liberty. I also heard this was the case in other counties as well. Then last night, after filing closed, I heard that Congressman Andy Harris had been fielding candidates who filed for Central Committee to run against the C4L candidates. I also heard that Harris had allegedly put up Alan McCarthy to run in the primary against Delegate Michael Schmiegel in District 36. And I'll point out that Delegate Schmiegel is our bill champion down in Annapolis, and he's the one that put forward the Fourth Amendment Protection Act in this legislative session. The article goes on. Will this proxy war to take over the county central committees, and how will will this be a proxy war to take over the county central committees, and how will it ultimately play out? What will the result mean for the state GOP? I talked to one prominent Republican last night who was not fond of C4L, who said he would do all he could in the central committee races to stop them. Another Republican told me last night that Andy Harris, quote, wants to run the state party, and the libertarians and liberty candidates are the only thing stopping him from being the party, unquote. Besides McCarthy in District 36, Harris is also said to be behind the campaign of Tim Robinson in District 42, where we have a candidate. During the Senate 36 mess last summer, I also constantly heard from people who weren't fans of Harris that he was trying to set up his own machine to control things in the GOP in the state. And the blog finishes. Is this latest conflict between Andy Harris and the libertarian-leaning Republicans a battle for the soul of the Republican Party, or is this just more infighting within a party that is totally locked out of any real power? My friends, this is a really good question that this blogger proposed. But standing here tonight, I can tell you, in our camp, we are not just fighting for crumbs, the scraps from Longshank's table. We believe the GOP should offer far more than better technocratic management of the Leviathan that exists in Washington, D.C. We believe the GOP should not just preach small government, but should actually practice it.
Amen.
That's right.
I know many of you, are not willing to settle just for taking back the Senate. We gave the Republicans the House of Representatives in 2010, and what have they done with it? Nothing. We want to take back our country. And I don't want to take our country back just from the Democrats, but I want to take our country back from Washington itself. And my friends, that is impossible with a Republican leadership that is intent on telling me that Washington can do for me if I will only let them help and let government into more corners of my life. I want Washington to leave me the hell alone. And the only way that is possible in this fight, the only way that is possible is this fight now in our Republican primaries. The patricians of the party must be defeated if we are to be left alone. If we do not change the face of the GOP, we will not change Washington. And if we do not change Washington, we can never change our country. We must challenge and replace Republicans. We must fight. We must. I would like to close with an excerpt from a letter I wrote to my District 7 delegates as relates to House Bill 1513. As usual, even though I'm a voter from their district, I got no response. So this is part of my letter. In my role politically, each and every day, I have dealings with new party activists from all over the country. Everywhere the situation is the same. The old guard in the party is against the new infusion of blood that the Tea Party brought into this party starting in 2009. The bottom line is that is common in every state is that the old guard basically do not understand the new activist leadership. The old guard wants to hold on to power at all costs and preserve their way of doing things in the party. They put party above principle. The new blood, quite simply, puts principle over party. For this, all across the country, they are called radicals, just as Pat McDonough called us radicals in WCBM. They are called dogmatic for their uncompromising stand upholding the principles of the Founding Fathers and holding politicians accountable who put more government intrusion into our lives. That is why we hold all elected officials accountable, be it Andy Harris voting to fund Obamacare, Nick Kipke voting for the rain tax, or Rick Impalera sponsoring a bill to take on $500,000 in new debt for Ladue Gardens. Last time I checked, it was not a Republican principle to take on new debt. It is this dedication to principle that is the divide that now ultimately separates us. With your actions on House Bill 1513, each of you has chosen to stand against those new activists in this party who now stand on principle. With your narrow view from your small corner of the world, you now stand against the tide of history. Thank you. So basically the point that I'm making here is that this is going on all across the country. In Wisconsin, Virginia, there are heated fights going on to throw people from the Tea Party who have gotten elected, to throw them out of office and out of the party. And what we have here, the bottom line is, we've got people in the Central Committee. Our Central Committee split. It's split between 6 Liberty people and 6 establishment Republicans. Okay? And what the party wants to do is punish people like Scott DeLong, who over the last couple of years has spoken out when Republicans have stepped out of line, and we've talked about things like Andy Harris voting to fund Obamacare and Nick Kipke voting for the rain tax. In my view, people, just because they get an R next to their name, they do not deserve a free pass. You know, and discipline starts at home, and that's what the 6 Liberty people on the Central Committee are doing. And this thing is nothing but a shameless attempt to put 8 people, members of the House of Delegates, 7 Republicans, immediately on the Central Committee. So suddenly that 6-6 vote goes from 13 to 6, and then people like Scott DeLong can now be brought up on charges for quote-unquote harm done to the Republican Party. And I'm telling you, for one, I'm not going to put up with this cleansing of the House as they view it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Originally, we had time for question and answers, and Scott, come up here for a second, and you had one quick question. Go ahead.
What is its status? Has it been voted out of committee?
It's
still in the Rules Committee.
It's in the Rules Committee, but I don't think it can't even pass over to the Senate, so the time has passed for that to even happen. So it's dead at this point.
It's not dead until the session's over.
Yeah.
Scott? Kevin had some questions we need to answer.
Yeah.
Okay. Scott?
No, I just wanted to say one thing real quick. Is regardless of where you are in this spectrum, right? Even if you're, and the reason why we got an 8-0 vote on this resolution condemning this bill is because even if you're, regardless of where you are, this bill is counterproductive to the party. It takes the power of the Central Committee away, and it takes away the power that the voters. So this bill would not just affect this one particular committee at this one particular time. It will affect every committee that comes after it.
And there's already been, I've heard from Annapolis, from lobbyists down there, that other delegates in other counties are really hoping this passes because they want to do the same thing.
Yeah, it's the camel's
So,
nose in the door.
What
yeah.
happens in Hartford is not going to stay in Hartford.
Absolutely not, yeah. It's a precedent-setting thing. Go, Al?
Well, maybe I'm reading this wrong, but the Maryland Constitution, page 13, section 7 of Article 1, I believe it is, says the General Assembly shall pass laws necessary for the preservation of purity of elections. So if you're circumventing the will of the people, that's not.
This law is circumventing the purity of elections. Absolutely.
So they're violating
It's
the Constitution,
shameful.
as far as I can see.
It's shameful and it's revealing of the statist nature of the people who are part of the statist part of the Republican Party. I'm sorry, Scott, didn't mean to talk over you. And normally we would take questions. It is 9 o'clock, but I mean, Christina, were you trying to say
No, I was
something?
just seeing if there were any questions.
Kevin, did you still have a question that's unanswered?
No, I mean, I think I got the gist of everything.
The letter that you got, Kevin, was basically just a petty response to.
We all got that.
To what, yeah.
To the board.
Well, I mean, I've been
And
listening
it's
to
not
everything on
true.
talk radio, and I've just seen all the heat, and I got this letter.
Right.
And so I'm just trying to take and figure it all out and just.
Did we
have
spend
clarity.
$1,800 on a Christmas party? Yes, but we also took in, what, twice that?
Right.
Because those people paid for Christmas.
It's a fundraiser, yeah.
Fundraiser, it's not like we invited our
They
family.
cooked for it, for
There was
goodness
a
sake.
fundraiser.
There was no
that
catering.
through.
This woman right here
Yeah.
cooked for it.
What I want everybody in this room to realize is that letter was sent out anonymously. When you send out an anonymous letter making those kinds of accusations, you have no credibility. People with integrity stand behind what they say. When we send out letters calling Republicans on their actions or Democrats on their actions, we put our names on those letters. They know how to find us and answer us. This letter came anonymously, and that says a lot about the sender. But in terms of, I want everybody here to take a look at the second letter in the packet you got. It goes over carefully all of their justifications for HB 1513,
Supposedly.
and it tears every one to shreds.
Absolutely. And as Dave pointed out, this is HB 1513 is just a microcosm of the struggle that is taking place within the Republican Party for the heart of the party. Is it going to be a Liberty Party like it originally was, or is it just going to be another not a dime's worth of difference kind of party, as George Wallace said one time, between the Republican and the Democratic Party? I mean, that is the struggle. And I have just two quick announcements. One is that we came $25 short of our goal for tonight, just to cover the meeting room tonight. So if everybody here feels like it and could, if you want to throw $1 in the thing as you leave, that will cover our meeting for tonight. We appreciate it and we thank you in advance. Secondly, the fourth Tuesday in April comes at the earliest time it could possibly come. It's April 22nd because the first Tuesday is April 1st. No fooling. Anyway, end on a light note. Anyway, so April 22nd, please mark it on your calendars. Please join us. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you understood what was going on tonight, but it is a struggle for the heart of the party. Thanks for being here tonight. Thanks for all the candidates, too.
The Republican Party is because the Republican Party in this state doesn't have a backbone. It hasn't had a backbone in years. The only thing that the Republican Party wants to do in this state is to maintain their level of control of what their little piece of the power pie is. And coming from Pat McDonough, Pat, I am so disappointed. I am so disappointed with you and this move that you're trying to do here.
Okay, Michelle, we've heard what you've had to say. Now, let me tell you, the Republican Party is a Republican Party with Tea Party members in it. The Tea Party, if it tries to go on its own, will wind up totally defeated with nobody getting elected to anything. Pat, you want to...
First of all,
hold on, Michelle.
I'm having trouble hearing because I'm on the floor of the House. One of the people speaking on the floor of the House right now is Mike McDermott, a delegate from the Eastern Shore, fighting a liberal spending bill. Michelle doesn't know what the hell she's talking about, excuse my French. We have 43 delegates down here against 98 Democrats. We offer thousands of amendments every year to all these bad bills. We stand up and fight and speak like McDermott. I don't see any of these people coming down here. I don't see Michelle coming down here.
I don't see McCready and that bunch in Harvard coming down here and doing anything except sending out hit pieces. What about the Tea Party? They're trying to hide behind the Tea Party. The people down here like Delegate Schmiegel and others and myself are members of the Tea Party caucus. So this is a bunch of radicals who do not do work but like to attack Republican conservatives. All right, now quickly, and you are a Republican conservative, and anybody who says you're not, doesn't, or Kathy is not, does not know what they're talking about. Alex and Marsh.
One of those, quote, radicals that Delegate McDonough...
Well, by the way, Alex, by the way, you call me a lot. You are.
I do.
Yeah, you are a radical.
Okay, all right. Well, this is the same line that Delegate McDonough gave me when he spoke on the phone. When I spoke on the phone with him, I guess it was Thursday morning. Basically what he's doing is he wants to purge any activists within the party, and he basically gave me the same condescending line that, what am I doing? Okay, first off, we're all working class. We're all working individuals. We don't have time to go down there. We don't have time to go down there and sit through, debates and amendments and going down to Annapolis.
All right, now, Alex, time out again because I'm really up against. Alex, hold on. I'm up. Alex, I'm up against the clock here. People don't appreciate that. How old are you, Alex?
How old am I? I'm 33 years old.
Okay.
I'm a veteran.
And you don't have time to go to a committee meeting at night?
No, I do not. I work 60 hours a week, Tom. I 60, and whatever time I have, it's activism and going door to door and getting people involved and knowing about the issue.
All right, but Alex, again, you and I have gone round and round again where you've tried to tear me into the and I found this speech.
Alex is arrogant, and he thinks he's the only activist in town. Rick Impalaria, Delegate Shalega, and myself have over 400 activists who are volunteers in our campaigns that go door to door. We don't win elections in Republican territories where there are solid Republican voters with overwhelming numbers. Alex seems to be able to find a lot of time to do hit pieces on emails, but he can't do a positive piece to support my repeal of the rain tax, my repeal of Common Core. These are radicals who are not interested in conservatism or the Republican Party. They are the liberal Democrats' best friends.
Well, I'll say one thing. If they're trying to fracture in the name of the Tea Party, a very strong delegation from Harford County, I've seen it happen so many times before. It happened to Andy Harris when he ran against a so-called libertarian. First time around, the libertarian gets 2,000 votes or so, or 2,500, and Andy Harris loses by a handful because of the libertarian candidate was in the race. Thank Alex and the lady who called earlier. Pat, I know that you're busy and that you have to get back onto the floor and continue to fight for conservative causes as you've always done.
Yeah, I always will, and the worst enemy that the conservatives and the Republican parties of this state has is that radical bunch. The worst enemy that the Tea Party people of this state have, of which I'm a proud member, is this radical bunch.
Well, let me tell you, I've gone around and around with Alex many times on the phone, and he is extremely radical. Thank you very much, Pat, for the call. We appreciate it. Folks, we have to take a break, and we shall return here on Talk Radio 680 WCBS.